Hello there YouTubers, hello and welcome back. At the moment there's a raging storm outside, and I mean a raging storm. Lots of wind. If I get flooded here, that's it as far as I'm concerned. I've been flooded here 6 times and not going through that again. Hopefully it won't come to that. Anyway, we're looking at this radio and I'm just trying to have a look around and see if I can see anything obvious that's not to my liking. And of course we've got a paper cap there, and we've got another one down there as well as that electrolytic, and one tucked in underneath there. You can just about see it underneath that big resistor with the brown on it. Also I have noticed this. It's lost its screw by the looks of it. There's no screw in it anywhere. That should be bolted down onto the mica plate there. And there's nothing, it's just hanging in mid-space. So at some point the screws come out. That's about all I can see really. As far as components, it's got it's not too bad. Not too bad at all. It's got some of the Hunt's capacitors in. I can see 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that all? 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that all there is? Yeah, that's like all there is. So the only concern I've got is this here. I haven't got any brass screws around that I know of. I'll have to go hunting. Might find something somewhere. But obviously if we do get that in there, then somehow I don't know what that trim is for. I've managed to, I'll tell you this, right, I was going to go down the local builders and I was going to get myself some of that hardboard. That was the plan. And I thought, no, I can't get out the front door because I've got all this cardboard in front of it that I was going to cut up. So I decided to cut the cardboard up. And I come across some really stiff pieces of card which will make an ideal background to glue my schematic onto. So that's what I'm planning on doing. I'm going to get the schematic cut down, what we need. And then we're going to put the schematic on it. That's the next plan. So what we'll do is we'll recap these capacitors and check around. I want to check this schematic for what resistors there are and where they are, and then I'll let you know how I get on. Next little point is my bulbs have turned up, as well as my connector blocks. 15 amp, 5 amp, and the other ones that we were using before I think are only 3 amp or something, not very big. Anyway, these are the bulbs that came, what I might think might be suitable. The voltage on the bulbs that came out was 6.8 volts. So I can just put a 12 volt bulb in for now while we're working on this. You know, because it won't be very bright, it'll just be very dim. But I'll probably end up using this one, which is a 6 volt bulb. Now that's going to be a bit too bright if that's the voltage that's coming out of there. And we'll have to put a multimeter on and check it now. If it's 6 volts that's coming out of those sockets for the bulbs, we're laughing. If it isn't, if it is 6.8, we'll have to put a drop-in resistor in. I don't know, guessing probably 10 ohms or something. We'll have to use Ohm's law to calculate the correct values that we need. So that's that bit done anyway. That's a plan. Right, we've copied, enlarged and sellotaped together and cut up our schematic. We've got a small version and we've got a big version. That's the top of the chassis, that's the bottom of the chassis, that's the switches, and that's the schematic. Now all I've got to do is just link up these lines where it doesn't quite match, but apart from that it's fine. Just a gentle hand with a pencil and we can tally those lines up. The rest of them is fine. So then what we're going to do then is we're going to prick stick it to some cardboard, and then we'll be able to mark it and do whatever we want. Okie dokie. So yeah, this is the schematic for that radio, and there's a picture there on the front, or one version of it. So what we'll be doing next, we'll be reading the schematic, going through it. I've got a friend turning up tomorrow, so I haven't seen him for quite a few years, so we'll have a good chat and stuff. But that's what we've been doing, preparing ourselves for working on that chassis, and then we'll be able to find out the information that we need. But this is brilliant, isn't it? It's a very good schematic. It's just those two pages tally up, those two pages tally up, but there's a difference in the size of the drawings from these two sheets to these two sheets. Doesn't matter, it's not the end of the world. And I cut them all on this. I'll show you what I use. I did buy this especially for this. It was for making Christmas cards, believe it or not. I've had this a long time. You can put your sheets under there, put it under the ruler. Brilliant. Right, what I'm doing now is I'm going to remove this. It's so ephemeral, it's not going to stand being turned backwards and forth all the time. So I'm going to unsolder this and take this off. And I think we've lost a few windings on the end there. We need to sort that out. You're going to have a look at this cap at the back. This is what I'm planning on putting in its place. It's 50 UF, 450 volts. It's 3 UF short. I'm going to go with that because I don't have anything that's that big. And I think we ought to get started on this, I think. I will admit at this stage I am a little bit depressed because I'm going back to work next week. And I hate my job very much, and unfortunately I need to do it to be able to do this. So once I get into work I'll be fine. It's just the getting into work is the problem. So I've got my 25 watt iron warming up with the biggest bit on I can find. It wasn't working, and I just changed sockets that it's in, and now it's working fine. So it's just a matter of unsoldering the can from the chassis and disconnecting the two wires because the case is ground. Right, there's the two wires underneath, yellow and red, from the markings on the bottom of the can. Both halves of the capacitor are both exactly the same, so it doesn't matter about getting them mixed up, along as they're on the positive. The chassis is negative, and you can see it's soldered into the chassis, so we need to unsolder that and unclip them wires. I found that the 25 watt iron is nowhere near enough, so I've now got the 40 watt iron. Hopefully this will be enough because this is the biggest iron I've got. Well, we found that even the 40-watt iron isn't enough. So you never guess what we're going to use next. Blowtorch. That will be hot enough. But we have to be a bit careful here. We don't want to set fire to anything or heat anything up too much. It's just enough to heat the solder. We could probably use a combination of both. So we have to be careful here. Right, we've got it loose, but unfortunately it's still holding on one end. But it's loose because I want to try and, I don't know if I can, but I want to try and use these tabs. Maybe I might be able to get the new capacitors inside this one. That's the plan. Well, Dremel tool comes in handy again. We've cut the, I've always wanted to do this, you know. I've seen this done many times. So I wanted to cut that off because it's aluminium with the steel ring crimped on the end with the connections for the chassis for earth. So I'm going to have a go at restuffing this. It's my very first. See how we get on. So we're going to pull this out and then see what happens. See what's like inside. And I've never seen one of these inside. For real. It's certainly gooey. But you can see the little dimple on the bottom now where it was starting to ooze. And that's what's inside. The old screw trick. So all we've got to do now is clean that out of there, straighten up this case, and then we'll try restuffing it. Hello there, right, we're back again. I've tried acetone and I've tried alcohol and I can't get this to dissolve. It's in the bottom of here. So I'm assuming might be petrol or something, or WD-40. So I'm going to go back over the videos that some of you have done and have a look to see what you've used and then use that. Petrol is the next thing. That usually melts this sort of stuff, because tar is sort of that sort of family of stuff, I should think. So we'll go back over those and have a look and see what we can find. Okay, this is what my bench looks like now after I have been going through all my capacitors. Now the plan is that what I want to do is I want to get rid of, oops, paper's gone everywhere. I want to get rid of the tin can, which we're working on now. Caps are on order for that. I want to get rid of the two waxy capacitors, which leaves us with two small electrolytics, which we'll leave in for the moment. And then I want to wire all this back up again, and then we start taking some voltages and check these resistors and things. But the reason why I've gone down this route is normally what I would have done is I would have gone straight for the resistors and started checking some values and see what voltages we've got at some of the pins and that sort of thing. But this radio is deteriorating all the time we've had it on. So to stop us from getting any shorts on any capacitors, any of the ones that I know that are bad, I'm getting rid of them now. That's the plan anyway. So as I say, I've been going through all of it, and what I've managed to find in my stash is I've got 4.7 UF at 450 volt, which is way over what I need. And now I've gone and lost them now. Oh, where did I put them? 2 secs. And for the paper caps, I've got plenty of these, which is the metal poly 0.1 UF or 100 NF at 630 volts. Oh, hold on a minute. Just checking something here. Have I got this right? Right, the working voltage on the capacitor is 350 and we're putting in 630, so that's way over the top. That's what we've got so far. That's where we are at the minute. I don't think the leads on these are going to reach across there, are they? I don't know. We'll have to have a look at that. That's the plan so far. What I'm trying to do is find something to remove the tar in the bottom of this can. The only thing I haven't got access to at the minute is some petrol, because I know that will melt tar. So that's what I was going to try, petrol. Right, I've just checked to see whether the capacitor, the O1UF, will reach across the back of that transformer, which it does just about, which means they will also do the one underneath. Now I've made my list of what I've got and haven't got, and what I have. I wanted 50 microfarads at 350 volts times 2 for the tin can. 0.1 UF 650 volts, which I have. They're 350 volts, I think, or 3 something volts. And then there's a 50 UF at 50 volts and a 4 UF. Now, I don't know what the voltage is on the 4 UF, but I've got a 4.7 UF, which is 450 volts, which will do the job. So it looks like we're in business for some of this. So here's my cigar. Anyone fancy smoking this? I must admit, even though it had a dimple on the bottom, it was still juicy. It wasn't completely dried out, so it must have been working of sorts. Now the other one, my father's radio, it's obviously the same chassis, that hasn't got a dimple in it, so it might be a question of just testing that one and see what it's like. But now the plan is, when we've cleaned all the tar out of it and cleaned up this, we've even got points to solder onto, so we can use the terminals maybe, I don't know. We'll see how we go. But this is going to be attached back onto that when it's all tested and everything, and we will probably use epoxy and epoxy it on. That's my plan. I don't want to use tape. I didn't like the idea of that. It looked messy to me. Anyway, that's what I'm planning. I'm going to post this. At least I'm cracking on with it. I might even remove that glass before we smash it, stick it up somewhere safe at some point. Alright, so thanks for watching. More to come later. See ya. Take care.